1. Welcome to episode 23 of The Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football and make the replacement refs look like pros. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Looks like I need to quit my job and become an IT guy.
I know. For background, we had about 45 minutes of technical difficulties prior to launching this show, so we saved you from having to endure that with us, but we're live right here, right now on YouTube. We will be every other week now, so I'll explain that in just a moment, but typically we'll be doing our episodes around 7:30 p.m. on Monday nights after, or actually 7:30 is wrong, probably 8 o'clock or so, 8-ish after Monday Night Football is over. We still kind of have to iron out the schedule, but if you're tired of the punditry or just want a fresh voice, come listen to a couple random dudes talk about football and have a good time. So this week, we've got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about. This is our 2019 season preview show. So we're going to be going over off-season moves. We're going to be going over sleepers and flops like we did last year, who we think are the sleepers and flops for each of the conferences, our playoff predictions, and lastly, our week 1 game predictions. But before we jump into that, I want to let our viewers know that we have a little bit of a change of structure this year, mostly due to the fact that my wife and I had a baby back in April. He's 4.5 months now. He's growing. He's healthy. But it necessitated some schedule changes. So we're going to be doing a every other week show this season. Still Monday nights, still after Monday Night Football. We're planning on keeping a pretty similar structure as far as the show itself is concerned, with some changes. But the streaming part of it, when you're going to be able to listen to the episode, that's going to be around the same time. It's just going to be half as often. We know that's sad. We would have liked to have been able to do it every week, but it just isn't going to work out that way this year. Hopefully next year we can get back to that. But so as for schedule, it's going to be every other week. As for the structure of the show itself, we want to be a little bit more NFL globally focused this year, rather than in last year, where we spent a lot of time talking about our favorite teams, the 49ers and the Dolphins. We want to cut down on that a little bit and try to discuss things that are a little bit more of general interest to you guys and just to, kind of the NFL in general. So we're going to be doing our regular game of the week. We're not exactly sure on quantities for that yet, but we do want to continue doing that, where we have sort of a detailed look at a game that we all, I think, is going to be exciting that week. We're still going to be doing our predictions at the end of the episode each time we meet up. And then in between, we're going to be doing a new segment where we talk about highlights from different games that Joseph and I may have watched together or may have watched separately throughout the couple of weeks. And we'll be able to talk about the other teams in the league and get them a little bit more FaceTime that way. We're still going to do, I know, our favorite segment, The Darndest Things. Commentators say the darndest things. We're still going to have that every episode. And we're going to still squeeze in some other special segments that we have for you guys planned as we go along throughout the season. So with all of that introduction out of the way, Joseph, unless you had something to add to that, we'll go ahead and dive right into our segment 1, off-season moves.
Well, I'm excited that it's once every other week. I thought it was going to be once a month. So, Steven, that's news to me.
Okay, well, here we are. Breaking news to my co-host. Yeah, I think we can pull off every other week. I'm kind of have the dad hat on right now, so I guess I'm just trying to do what I can. But yeah, I think every other week is probably reasonable. If we end up doing once a month, we'll definitely let you guys know via Facebook and Twitter that's changed. But for now, let's plan on every other week and see where we go.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So our first segment of the show is the moves of the off season. So the way we're going to structure this segment is we're going to go through the the conferences division by division, and we're going to list out the major players that moved. Last year we talked about like everybody. This year we really pared it down to talk about the big name players, guys that you would actually probably care about. So starting with the NFC East, the Cowboys didn't really go through any trades or free agency pickups of note. And pre-statement real quick. This is not covering the draft. We already had our draft episode a couple months ago, so we're not covering the draft in this. This is just trades, free agency, and cuts. So the Cowboys didn't go through anything. The Giants traded their big thing in the offseason was that they traded Odell Beckham and Olivier Vernon to the Browns for safety Jabril Peppers and the guard Kevin Zeitler, and a 2019 first and third round pick. So that was that might have been the biggest trade of the offseason, at least up there in the top 2 or 3. And then I had to throw it in there. The Giants now, Golden Tate is now a Giant, so good for him. Eagles traded Michael Bennett and the 2027 round pick for a 2025 round pick. So he's kind of gone down in value. I wasn't expecting it to be that low. I feel like maybe he's worth a little bit more than that, but that's how it is. So the Eagles got rid of Michael Bennett. And they also traded a 2020, I think it's an undisclosed pick, or I didn't quite understand how they listed this out, but a 2020 pick for the running back Jordan Howard from the Bears, who's had several good 1,000 plus yard seasons the last few years. And then lastly, the Redskins signed safety Landon Collins. They also traded for Case Keenum. So he's getting thrown around to another team. And they signed both Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and also Adrian Peterson. So
yeah, the Case Keenum trade is probably easily top 5 of the offseason. But
top 5 in terms of like talent and also excitement level. Yeah.
And importance.
And yeah.
And Super Bowl bound.
Number of articles written about all of the metrics you might care about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the real one there, the Odell Beckham Jr. I feel like the Browns, they win the trade, and it's better for them. But it's something that the Giants had to do now before a year or two from now, because the Giants are about to probably enter a rebuilding mode. And as long as they can keep Barkley as a foundation, that is good. But they probably would have lost Beckham for a lot less later on if they didn't get rid of him. So they kind of had to do it now, and I think they got fairish trade value out of that. But the Browns won, I guess, in a subjective sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Browns definitely got the better size of that. All right, so AFC East.
Yeah, AFC East. So start with the Patriots. So they acquired Michael Bennett from the Eagles. Heard that. Biggest news. I'll get to that next, actually. Released Demaryius Thomas, who also the Texans released. We'll see later. But it sounds like they can pick him back up. I actually was reading that there's some interesting rules about how you can release someone and it may be advantageous and then pick them up later. So don't really know what's going on there. But the big news is Gronk retired, right? You have a Hall of Fame tight end, even with his injuries, and he's retired. So we'll see if the Patriots have a new piece for him. The Bills, they signed Cole Beasley to a 4-year deal. They signed Frank Gore to a 1-year deal, and they released running back LaShawn McCoy.
And that was the LaShawn McCoy thing happened in the last couple of days.
Yeah. Some of these have been really recent. I actually had to update one today. The Jets signed C.J. Mosley to a 5-year deal, and then the biggest one is they signed Le'Veon Bell to a 4-year deal. And then the Dolphins, instead of doing a fire sale, well, I guess they've been doing a fire sale relative to other teams in the league. They released Danny Amendola. They traded Ryan Tannehill to the Titans. They traded Robert Quinn to the Cowboys. They traded Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills to the Texans. But they did have some important signings, I think. They signed Devontae Parker to an extension. They extended Xavier Howard and Jakeem Grant to extensions. So a lot going on with the Dolphins.
So who did the Dolphins get in return for Tunsil and the other guy?
So I only put down trade values for ones that were pretty large. I think this was almost like I think we got players out of this and some picks, but I only put down the ones there was like, oh, a first round pick or something like that.
Okay.
So
I remember when I read the Tunsil trade, I remember feeling like it was pretty good for the Dolphins.
yeah,
Uh,
and we also I forget that date, we also traded Kiko Alonso. I forgot who we traded him to. I think it was the Texans. Um, Not sure. And we got a linebacker and some other stuff, other picks or whatever out of it. So we definitely, I feel like, won these trades for a rebuild.
yeah, I think my big two comments out of AFC East are one, obviously the Le'Veon Bell one is huge. That him finally landing somewhere, we'll see what kind of impact he can have for the Jets, and then Gronk retiring is a big one. But yeah, the Dolphins just seem to finally. You and I were harping on this all of last year that they needed to commit to a rebuild, and I felt like all these moves really signal that they're finally committing to that. So I'm really happy for you guys. It's going to mean the next couple years are going to be pretty ugly, but at least it's ugly with an upward trajectory rather than the last couple years, which is slightly less ugly but with a downward trajectory.
Yeah, I think for next year, we have two picks in each of the first three rounds. So you have 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, two in each. And then I think we have like 11 or 12 picks overall next year. And then also a good amount the following year. So yeah, we're really stocking up picks the next 2 years, which I like.
All right, NFC North. The Bears. So preface comment, I guess everybody pretty much stayed the same. There weren't a whole lot of big things, but in the NFC North, the Bears signed safety Clinton Dix. Lions signed Danny Amendola and Trey Flowers, and also Tom Savage. So, Packers really didn't do anything except for I did see later. I think it was, let's see. Oh yeah, the Rams picked up Clay Matthews. I had forgotten
Whoa,
about that somehow,
what?
but I
Hey,
guess
I totally forgot that.
yeah, I think he was a free agent, so the Packers just didn't try to re-sign him. So, but yeah, so they lost Clay Matthews, but there weren't any other like major things that happened. And then the Vikings pretty much didn't really do anything either.
Man, I totally forgot about Clay Matthews. That's big news. Be curious to see how many years Stafford has left and how he's going to use Danny Amendola. If there's going to be anything there. All right, so moving on to the AFC North. So the Ravens, they terminated the contract of Michael Crabtree. They traded Joe Flacco to the Browns. And then the big signings, they signed Mark Ingram, running back, and safety Earl Thomas. As for the Browns, they signed Kareem Hunt. So it looks like he's out for about a month or so from injury. They signed defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson. He was a free agent from Minnesota. That's a big pickup. And then the Odell Beckham and Oliver Vernon trades that they got from the Giants. So Steelers, they signed Big Ben to a 3-year deal extension. And the big one, obviously, is they traded Antonio Brown to the Raiders for a 3rd round and 5th round draft pick in the 2019 draft. Lastly, the Bengals, which deserve to be last because they're irrelevant, they re-signed Tyler Eifert, their tight end. They terminated the contract of Vontaze Perfect. And then, shockingly, this happened, I think, today or yesterday, they released their defensive lineman, Michael Johnson, after all those years. So, any comments?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the Big Ben one is interesting because 3 years seems like a lot with where he's at right now.
Yeah, if the 3rd year includes this year, that's still pushing it. But if it's 3 years after this year, that's but. And then I guess I'll comment. Antonio Brown, he was and is worth a lot more than a third and fifth round pick. But that just goes to show when there's off the field antics or turmoil that can drop what other teams are willing to give up for that. So
yeah, definitely.
pretty sad how that happened. And then Michael Johnson, still kind of surprised. We'll see. I'm sure someone will pick him up in the next day or two.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, go ahead.
All right, NFC South. So I'm a little confused because you said that Michael Bennett got picked up by the Patriots. Did you say that?
That's what I had last seen. That's what was on the Patriots website. Unless that was so. One preface to the audience: even on some teams' officials' websites for transactions, they weren't fully accurate. So
okay, because I saw that he got traded to the Falcons. So unless there's two Michael Bennetts, I don't know exactly what's going on there.
I'm gonna look it up right.
Okay, yeah, we should probably get our facts straight on that one because from what I saw, that's what it showed on the Falcons website.
It says he's a Patriot. It says,
huh. Interesting. Okay, so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe did he go through like an extra trade or something, or an extra cut or something like that?
I'm not sure actually.
Huh. Okay, well, there's some inaccurate information floating around on the football database then. I was using, I think it was called footballdatabase.com, but there's also the official team websites, which unfortunately tend to be less detailed about what the actual trade entailed. It just says like cut this player, sign this player, waived, whatever. So the Falcons picked, so they're probably their biggest one is that they they got rid of Matt Bryant at the end of 2017, and then they picked up a new guy in 2018, decided to get rid of him and re-sign Matt Bryant. So he's back on the team. The Saints didn't really do anything that was major. The Bucks picked up Ndamukong Suh, and then the Panthers signed Chris Hogan. So they're adding yet another weapon to an already pretty scary offense.
Yeah, play the Panthers. That'll help the Panthers build up, to what they had a couple years ago. And I guess I didn't realize that. Oh man, I totally went blank here. Who was the pick? Who was the Bucks? What was their?
Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, does Suh want to win in his career? Like, why? I mean, he was with the Rams. How did that not work out? And why did he go to like one of the least contenders in the league?
Yeah, I don't know, because he was with the
Rams,
the Lions before that, right? He was with the Lions for a while.
No, so it was Lions,
Dolphins, Rams, and now Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. I guess he got some good money. Must have been money.
But it's all about winning, I thought. But no, it's about winning, clearly.
Oh, well, yeah, you go to the Bucks if you want to win. Duh.
Yeah.
Okay, AFC South.
All right, so Titans, their biggest transactions were involved the Dolphins. So they signed linebacker Cameron Wake, and then they acquired Ryan Tannehill from the Dolphins. He signed a 1-year deal with them. Colts, the only real one to talk about is Andrew Luck retired. Jeremy will comment on that in a minute. The Jags, they released Malik Jackson. It's pretty big. They released Blake Bortles, needed to happen, and they signed Nick Foles. The Texans released Demaryius Thomas. They acquired Carlos Hyde, but then I think that actually might be an error. I'll have to confirm that in a minute. And the big one is Jadeveon Clowney signed with the Seahawks as a free agent.
Yep.
But I need to confirm the Carlos Hyde thing because I saw multiple sources say multiple teams said they had him.
Yeah, well, I think he went through a bunch of cuts and pickups in the preseason. So I think he was with the Chargers maybe at one point because I think he was playing in a preseason game against the Niners. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure he's all over the place. His career's really gone downhill, so I'm sure he'll get picked up as a backup somewhere. So the only comment I have about the AFC South is every Colts fan deserves to like go to prison or something for booing Andrew Luck out of the stadium
Heard about
the
that.
night he retired. I mean, come on, like that's you're booing a guy that has gone through multiple injuries that have taken him out of a bunch of games that have pretty much ruined his relationship with the franchise, and he is a top 10 quarterback talent of all time. Come on, like that there's no excuse for you don't even do that for someone that's not that good, let alone for him.
Yeah, it's as if it's like they think that he owes them. This man has taken so many beatings for your team. The Colts have failed to really build around him, and he's stuck with them. He's always play hard. This guy's, I mean, I've seen him where he is lined up at wide receiver, and I remember last year the comments against the Dolphins, and he jumped up in the air, caught it, and got nailed. And it's like, well, he's gonna keep doing that, I guess. But he always played tough, always play hard, great talent, humble guy, and I'm sure he did his best. I mean, how many injuries did he try to come back from and play hard? And now you're booing him because he wants to retire and save his body. It's ridiculous. Colts fans should be ashamed.
Yeah, they should be.
At least the ones that booed, not all of them. Just the ones
Yeah. All right. NFC West, the final division. So probably no, this isn't the biggest, but there were actually several big moves in the West. So the Cardinals traded Josh Rosen to the Dolphins. So they're at one point up and coming first round pick from a couple years ago. He was, or not a couple years ago, from last year, was traded away for a new guy that they drafted this year. And they also signed Michael Crabtree to a 1-year contract. Seahawks. Oh, by the way, so the Dolphins gave up a 2019 second and 2020 fifth for Josh Rosen. That feels high to me. So I think you guys might have gotten a little bit shortchanged there. But so the Seahawks traded Frank Clark to the Chiefs. They signed Ziggy Ansah, and they traded for Jadeveon Clowney, and Doug Baldwin and Cam Chancellor both retired. So the Seahawks probably underwent the biggest shift of any team in the league this season in terms of this offseason in terms of big names. The Niners traded with the Chiefs for Dee Ford, and they also signed running back Tevin Coleman from the Falcons. And then the Rams signed Clay Matthews and Blake Bortles. So like I said, a lot of big names moving around. The Seahawks still think they've got it. I mean, they were 10-6 last year. They think that they're, I think, a couple of trades away from being that good again. But if you look at their roster now, there are so few guys on that team that were on that team 3 years ago. They have really gone through a lot of changes, so it'll be interesting to see how well they do this year. I was not happy about the Jadeveon Clowney pickup because with their first-round pick from this year injured, I thought their defensive end was going to be a poo-poo position, but it's not going to be that way. The glass half full is that Clowney's not as good as Clark. So,
yeah. The Clowney one was kind of surprising. I mean, there was a time people were watching that Clowney was considering the Dolphins for a little bit, but went to the Seahawks instead. So I'm not actually too upset with that. It's fine. Yeah, so we'll have to probably change our next segment on the fly because I didn't realize that many changes to the Seahawks. Didn't realize Cam Chancellor retired. That is big. And I knew Doug Baldwin retired. And we should probably do our own segment on that alone because that deserves about a 4-hour special. But yeah, the people underestimate Doug Baldwin. I'm being serious now. The chemistry with Russell Wilson that he had, that's kind of why we poke fun at him. For those who listen and wonder why we do that, because how good they are together shouldn't happen, but it does.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the best way of putting it.
I can't remember what stat I had seen last year after a game, but it was like, I don't know if it was relative to the fourth quarter or deep passes or whatever. I think it was, but it was some ridiculous stat of like Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin. Russell Wilson has like a passer rating of like almost 120 with Doug Baldwin in this certain circumstance. I'm like, that's insane. So losing him will be big. Cam Chancellor, even just from a leader standpoint, because I know he struggled with injuries in the latter part of his career. And I agree with you that Clowney does not have as much potential. He's more of on a downslope and settling out, whereas I think Clark can be going up. So they are a little net negative there. And then I guess also for the Rams to consider is just Gurley struggling with injuries. He had that degenerative knee, and just not knowing, Gurley going from looking like a Hall of Famer to, he's going to have to be limited this year, so that could really affect him.
Yeah. Do you think you could see maybe the Rams making a trade for a big running back next year?
I feel like that they give Gurley one more year, and it's going to be a function of how healthy he is and his performance. Even if he performs really well, if there's physical evidence that his body's not going to make it, they still may try to get that good value out of him.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario is he's degenerative, his knees, and he plays poorly. But I just feel bad for him because I like Gurley. Guy was really fun to watch, and looking forward to seeing how he could do a whole career, because that kind of reminded me of a little bit Marshall Faulk, a little bit of who am I thinking of? There's someone else I'm thinking of, but I can't. Tiki Barber, who was a good receiving running back and very dynamic. So really sad. Hope he can stay healthy, but we'll see. Lastly, the AFC West. So the Chiefs traded Dee Ford to the Niners for a 2020 seconds. Really quick, do you think that was a fair trade? It's fair value for each team?
Was it just a 2020 second?
That's what I saw on the Chiefs website. So if it's different, the Chiefs didn't report it correctly.
I think Dee Ford probably was worth a 2020 19, or sorry, a 19 second, not a 2020 second. But I think a second round pick is fair for him.
So are you saying that? Wait, so what's more valuable? I guess a 2019 or 2020 second?
I think a pick right away is more valuable than a pick down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you think so? You guys won then more. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we also won with his contract too. It's very, very team friendly contract.
What is it? Do you know, by the way?
I don't remember the exact numbers. I'd have to pull them up. But he fell sort of on the, on the high tier of defensive ends. He sort of fell on like the lower of the high tier with like not as much guaranteed money.
That is true. Some guys were getting some ridiculous contracts. All right. Moving forward. The Chiefs, they released Eric Berry. They released Justin Houston. They signed Tyrann Mathieu, a.k.a. the Honey Badger. They acquired Frank Clark from Seattle for a 2019 first and a 2020 second. And they signed LaShawn McCoy. The Raiders acquired Antonio Brown from the Steelers trade. They signed Vontaze Burfict. The Broncos, they acquired Joe Flacco from Baltimore, and they signed tackle Jawan James to a 4-year deal. And the Chargers, I didn't really have anything for the Chargers. The only thing going on right now is the Melvin Gordon drama, and it's looking like he's probably not going to stay. They're pushing him a little bit further, and
that hurts.
Yeah, I mean, because Melvin Gordon wants Le'Veon Bell money, and not even Le'Veon Bell deserves Le'Veon Bell money. So, Gordon, you're good. Star athlete, running back, easily top 5 to 8 running back of the league. But
sit down.
Yeah, but that's what he's doing. So the Chargers are going to hurt from it. He's going to hurt from it. Even if someone pays him, who's going to pay him that money and be on a contender? So it's a matter of, do these players want to be on a contender? Do they really want to win? Or do they want to get a few more $1 million? And honestly, I feel like more than half the time it's the money. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest one there was Joe Flacco. So I don't really have anything else to say. No, I mean, I think the Chiefs made some smart moves. I think Frank Clark will be great for them. Um, and so they're going to still have a pretty good line, and they're a fast team, a fairly young team. I think getting rid of Eric Berry was, although sad looking at his history the last couple years, that was the right move.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and
so they're doing what they need to do, I think, to stay relevant, stay on the top, 2 to 3 teams in the league.
yeah, and while LaShawn McCoy at this point in his career doesn't have the upside that Kareem Hunt has, uh, McCoy has always been a very good receiving running back, and that may actually play better into the system the Chiefs have right now. So I think McCoy is actually going to be like, I guess, a sleeper player for the Chiefs, and I would say watch out.
Yeah, I
So
can see that for sure. All right, so that concludes our uh, off-season moves segment. So now we're gonna move into uh, our sleepers and flops segment. And if you remember from last year, we took each of the conferences, and then Joseph and I each chose one team that we thought was a sleeper for that conference, and one flop. Now, I'll give you how I defined sleeper and flop for myself as I did this, because I think Joseph's and my definitions may vary a little bit, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a concrete definition. Um, so how I define sleeper was kind of two things. One is a team that didn't do very well last year relative to maybe how they have done in years prior, or relative to how a lot of people thought they were going to do, and then are going to step it up a lot this year. Last year, I think one of the other kind of side definitions we had for sleeper was also that the team had to sort of be an unspoken, like, good team. Like not many people were thinking that they were going to be good, but we're calling it because we're good. Uh, I didn't include that this year because I think that definition has some problems when you look at where the league is this year. So I just went with who I think is going to kind of surprise in terms of net difference on the win column.
yeah,
Um,
so before you go into yours,
yeah,
I'll want to add that. So I think the latter definition, independent of what's going on in the league year by year, is probably the best definition. But for this year specifically, yeah, it is tougher. So I would say I'm like a hybrid. I try to go for, who are people not really talking about, but also combine the idea of almost like an expected win total. Like, what do people expect kind of now versus what we're saying? And if that's like a plus or minus 2 to 3 game swing, then that could be like quantitatively a flopper or a sleeper. I try to kind of combine them, and that's kind of where I'm estimating. Not exact science, didn't look all the schedules and games, but just kind of what I'm feeling for.
okay. Yeah, I think as far as like the word sleeper goes, that really implies that nobody's expecting it to happen. So we might want to maybe use another word for next year, but I think that's fair to kind of incorporate both of those sides of the definition at maybe varying weights to them.
And
So
also, if you wouldn't mind, let's give our contenders as well, because I know this was very difficult for us this year. So let's
yeah,
give our
this was a very tough one. So I agree that, well, that's fine. So I'll start with the NFC, my sleeper. I'll do my sleeper and flop, and then you can do your NFC sleeper and flop. So for the NFC, my sleeper team this year is the Niners. They were 4-12 last year. People thought they were going to be much better last year, and they weren't for a whole variety of reasons, mostly devastating numbers of injuries and also Garoppolo going down to the ACL. Um, Most of their teams coming back healthy. They made a lot of good moves and picked up a lot of good pieces in the offseason. I think the only reason why you wouldn't put them a sleeper is because I think a lot of people are expecting them to be better. But I looked at the different teams in the league, and I'm expecting them to be a net +4
Ooh,
And I
yeah.
don't know how many other teams in this league are going to be, or in the conference are going to be net +4 this year. I looked at one or maybe two teams that might be that. So
So I
so
see what's
my
going
my
on.
real quick,
You're
I'll just say my sleeper, my backup sleeper was the Falcons. Uh, they're they were a team that I think people thought again were going to do better last year, and they didn't. They went 7-9, and I think they were also hit by injuries, but they've got a lot of the same talent, and I think they can come back. They're more of rather, I guess, maybe the better word for them would be they're maybe like the comeback team of the year rather than the sleeper team. But again, that goes to show how difficult that definition is when we're talking about what we're talking about, because depending on who you look at, a lot of people are predicting X, Y, and Z teams to do well or not do well. So those are my two picks.
sorry, I didn't mean to interject there. Just wanted to clarify uh, that you're considering a delta from last year's performance as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, which is something that I'm not really considering as much, but that makes sense. Um, so for the NFC, my sleeper, so um, I'm going with the Eagles. Um, I think that there's been some kind of mystery with what's happening with them after they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago and they lost Nick Foles, and will Wentz come back from the injury? Is he going to live up to the potential that he's had? Though he had a very good start to the season last year before he got injured. They have lost some key players on defense, shuffling around. So I think right now people are probably thinking, oh, they're probably 7-9, 9-7 team. So I think that they could um, have a good swing and be a sleeper. Who I considered. So I was thinking strongly the Seahawks. I just had a gut feeling that they were going to step it up and overmount some of their deficiencies. But when I heard Jeremy give the full list, I didn't realize they had that many. So I consider them, so they're a consideration. And then my other consideration is the Falcons. And the reason why I put a question mark next to them is the same thing for you. It's like, well, are they really a sleeper, or is it more of kind of a comeback team and returning back to where they could be or should be from a couple of years ago? And then for the flop, very tough. Honestly, I don't know who to pick. I'll just give my two, and we can go from there. Vikings and Rams. So what that does not mean is that the Rams are going to miss the playoffs. What it means is they're going to have, I think, a considerate delta from where they were last year and where people are probably still thinking them. Yes, they lost Sue. Yes, Gurley is not going to be the same, but they still have a very good core around them. And I can't imagine why anyone would say that they're not 11 or 12 win team. And I think they're going to be duking it out in the West with the Seahawks for that division race. And then the Vikings, I personally want them to be a sleeper or to do well, but while I think Cousins will play better this year, I think as a team as a whole, they're not going to be as good as people are thinking or as they should be.
Yeah, the Vikings were tough. I considered them, but then I looked at where they were the year before, because they were 13-3 and 17, and then they were 8-7-1 last year. And I thought, you know what? I don't really see, because I was considering record, I don't really see them sinking much deeper than that. So that's the main reason I didn't put them. But so I was actually, funny enough, you were considering Seahawks for a sleeper. I was considering them for a flop, actually. But the reason I didn't end up picking them is because I also don't think they're going to sink too much deeper than 10 wins. I think maybe they'll end up around 8 wins this year. I don't think they're going to be competing for the division. But then my real flop choice is the Cowboys.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, so of course it is, because I picked it. So they were 10-6 last year. They won the division. They beat the Seahawks in the wild card round, and then they lost to the Rams, I think, in the division round.
Yes.
And I want to say part of it, I think they had a kind of easy schedule last year. I looked at their schedule this year. They're going to be competing for the division. I think they're going to lose it to the Eagles. But I think their biggest thing is they just have this. I think Prescott was really inconsistent last year. And they got Amari Cooper, which helped out. But I just feel like they have not proven that they can be a consistently good team. So I think they're going to be probably 2 wins less than they were last year, because I think last year's numbers were kind of bloated for them. So they're going to regress. And I was going to mention, actually, while we're talking about this, so I had a kind of not an epiphany, because that makes me sound too cool. A moment where I was looking at some of these teams' schedules when I was considering this and also the next segment about the playoff predictions. And I analyzed their schedule in terms of not just what I thought wins and losses were going to be, but wins, losses, and toss-ups. And with those 3 numbers, I was actually able to see a pretty interesting distribution and look at how difficult their schedule was compared to how good the team is. And I think it helped me actually compare teams to each other in a way that I've never done before. So when we talk about playoffs, I can go a little bit more in depth into that. But looking at the Cowboys, that helped me. So let's go into, why don't you give your AFC sleeper team?
Okay. And then you'll give your sleeper?
Yeah, and I'll give my sleeper after that.
Okay. So how do I do this? Yeah, I kind of was considering the Ravens, but that's not. But by any use of either of our definitions, that's not really valid, because I would say they're more of a dark horse team, which is like, watch out for them, but not necessarily a sleeper, because they are being discussed. And, while there's some variability of how Jackson will play, like, they did help their run game. Their defense was already good. They made it better through trades and draft. And they signed that wide receiver. I think, what's his name? Marquise Brown, or I can't remember, from Oklahoma. So the Ravens, people are kind of already expecting them to be kind of good anyway. So that's not really. So the other consideration is the Dolphins. And you're probably thinking, why? Well, because in no way are they going to be good, but they are not going to be as bad as people are thinking. And let me explain why. So people are no doubt having them as being one of the worst teams because of the rebuilds, because of the quarterback situation and so forth. And I would say they're probably a 3 to 5 win team with what's kind of going on in the expectation. I think the Dolphins can at best go 8-8, but probably 6 or 7 wins. And by my definition of a 2 to 3 game plus expectation, I think that fits with contending for being a sleeper. I think they have nothing to lose, right? Here's the difference. In the previous years, there's been this aura of like, well, could the Dolphins win 10 games? If everything clicks, yes. And like, is Tannehill finally going to be good? And like, we're adding pieces and it never works. And that's been happening for like 3 to 4 years. Well, now there's no mystery. The league knows, the fans know, everyone, the team knows that they're not going to be good. They're not going to go to the playoffs. They're in a rebuild mode, and they're 2 to 3 years away from actually contending. Everyone knows that now, which is the first time in years. So with that, I think they're going to go for it. They're going to really test and experiment who's going to work for them. They're going to they have nothing to lose. And I think in that mentality, they're going to win more games than people are expecting. But I decided not to go with them. They're a close second. I'm going with the Jags. Remember when I talked about this and realized that the Jags, they probably were a little they overperformed 2 years ago, their defense. And then Bortles had some magic towards the end, I think. And then last year they underperformed their defense. And then Bortles went back to normal. And then this year their defense is going to come back up, but not be as good as it was 2 years ago. And I think Foles is going to rejuvenate the team. And as long as Fournette can play well, I think the Jags 10-11 wins. I think that's slightly higher than what's being considered for them.
Yeah, I just don't know how you would even consider Miami as the sleeper when they won 7 games last year.
No, because of
like
everything they've done. because of everything they've done. That's the thing. I'm not considering last year's performance. I'm considering this year's team. So with the overhaul and everything that's happening, they're a quote unquote 4-win team. They're projected to be one of the worst teams. They're in a rebuild mode. There's no. If we were to say they're going to win 7 games, people would be like, "There's no way." So the fact that I'm saying 7, 8's the cap, is a 2 to 3 game swing from what's kind of expected.
Okay, I think we've fallen far from what sleeper should mean. But
well,
if sleeper means guys sleeping on the field while the other team is making plays, then yeah, sure, we could use that definition. That's fine.
I don't know how last year's performance for any team can really be considered if the team has changed. If the team hasn't changed.
No, but fair. Every team's always changed. That's the thing is, so you have to consider how the only actual data is what they did the year before.
No, but the thing is,
so if you base it on only on expectations of what you think they're going to be based on their current roster, but you think everybody's wrong and they're actually going to do better, that's its own definition, I guess. So they're the breaking expectations team of the year.
Well, but I think that's a traditional definition of sleeper, because while you're right that last year is the only real data, and everyone at some level makes a change. A lot of those changes can be very insignificant or kind of in the noise of the filter. But the Dolphins have gone through a complete transformation, and no one is expecting them to win 7 or 8 games.
Right, but I think in order for someone to break expectations, in order for someone to be a sleeper, though, as differentiating them from just breaking expectations, they also have to do better than they did the year before.
I guess that's where I disagree. I guess with such a sufficient transformation of the team and the expectations that come along with it, I guess that's in our presuppositions of how we're doing this. I guess that's where we probably disagree then. So okay. maybe for next year we'll need to try to have a consistent, agreeable definition before we do the show.
Yeah, so. I think for sleeper it needs to be comeback team of the year, and I think flop needs to be flop. I think flop is fine. I think we're looking at the term flop okay, but I think sleeper really should be comeback team of the year.
Okay, all
right. So my sleeper team is also not the Dolphins. is also the Jaguars. So they were 5-11 last year, and not just their record, but for all the same reasons Joseph gave. I think they're going to surpass expectations this year and come out probably with the division, actually, because Houston is probably going to be poopier than they were last year, and the Colts are going to be a lot worse. Okay, AFC flop. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first on this one?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So my contender is the Browns, and that's not on last year's performance. Well, last year was already like, what's going on? The Browns won 7 or 8 games. That's amazing.
They were 7, 8, and 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason is, and they've kind of settled now in the preseason after people watching them, because people had really high hopes on the Browns a few months ago. Probably still relatively high. That's why I only consider them as a contender and not my actual choice. My choice is the Chargers. It gets a little muddled with the Melvin Gordon situation, because if he's gone, then everyone's going to lower their expectations. So, but I think the Chargers, I think a lot of things clicked for them last year. So they won 12 games, right?
Yeah, they won 12.
And I think 10 is their best. And I think they're going to underperform. I think the Chiefs will clearly take that division, and they probably won't be in playoff consideration, or barely, as a wild card. So Chargers.
Okay, that's a good one. I was considering them. I ended up choosing the Colts. I think with Andrew Luck's departure, I think they're going to massively deflate as a team. And you told me that they're bringing in Brock Osweiler.
That's what I saw last time.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
Hold on a second. 2019 Colts QB.
I mean, they have Jacoby Brissett as their backup, so he might compete with Osweiler probably for a starting job. Because at this point, Osweiler is at best a backup. So I imagine that they probably would have to compete for the role. It's not going to be handed to one of those guys.
Yeah, and then they signed. Looks like today they signed Brian Hoyer. So between Brian Hoyer,
yeah, all those guys are going to
yeah.
compete, and they're going to probably cut at least one of them before the season starts.
And yeah,
or maybe not before the season, but after the first couple weeks. Yeah. So I picked the Colts. I think they were 10-6 last year. They're going to come down. And yeah, I also considered the Texans too, but I didn't end up landing on them. All right. So our next segment is our playoff predictions. So for this one, we are going to not list what we think the records are going to be. We're just going to say who we think is going to win each of the divisions and then who the 2 wild card teams are going to be for each conference. So I'll go ahead and I'll start with the NFC.
And the buys.
Right, and the buys. So for the NFC, I have the Eagles, the Bears, the Saints, and the Rams winning their respective divisions, with the Saints and the Bears getting buys. And I have the Falcons and the Panthers picking up the 2 wildcard spots.
Okay.
You can go ahead and list yours, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. So here's how I'll say it. So for me, the buys are also the Saints and the Bears. And I did a last minute switch here. What I have now is that the Rams are going to win the West and the Eagles will win the East. And then for my wild card teams, I have the Seahawks and the Packers. But I may consider the Falcons only from the last minute discussion that we've had today. So I'll put a wild card there, but definitely the Packers as the wild card.
Yeah, this was very hard for me to do. I actually had to go through. I had to look at the Cowboys' schedule, the Falcons' schedule, the Panthers' schedule, and the Packers' schedule, and I also kind of looked at the Seahawks' schedule too to consider this. The wild card, the NFC is absolutely stacked this year, and it's going to be very close down to the wire who's going to make wild card. So
there's going to be so many 9-7 and 10-6 teams.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to figure out. Okay,
so for the AFC, I've got the Patriots.
Really quick though, how do you feel? How come you didn't have the Packers making the playoffs?
No, I didn't.
You don't think they're going to win 9 or 10?
I think they're last year they were 6-9-1. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think their ceiling is probably 10 games.
But the Panthers, you think the Panthers will step up?
Well, I think the Panthers are going to be better too.
Okay.
I mean, I think that was a close call. I thought Falcons was pretty safe to me, but then looking at the Packers and the Panthers and the Cowboys, that was all kind of a tough one, and I ended up picking the Panthers.
Yeah.
Look based on their schedule, and I'll actually explain that real quick. So my method of it was guaranteed. When I looked at a schedule, I said guaranteed wins, guaranteed losses, and up in the air. And when I did that, I had the Falcons at 7-2-7, the third number being up in the air. The Panthers were 8-1-7. The Packers were 6-5-5, and the Cowboys were 7-3-6.
Ooh, I should have done that.
So that distribution really clears out kind of the probability of someone succeeding. And that's what I determined that the Falcons and the Panthers were going to be at the top.
Okay, cool.
Okay, AFC. I have the Patriots and the Chiefs as the 2 buys, and then I have Ravens and Jaguars for the 2 other divisions. And then for wild card, I have Steelers and Chiefs. Or sorry, Steelers and Chargers.
Interesting. Okay,
yeah, I know we're gonna disagree on this one.
Yeah, we're gonna be so. For me, my buys are Chiefs and Steelers. And then, but it'll be very close. And what will probably decide it is the week 1 Steelers at Patriots, because those are the 2 teams in contention for that second buy. So I think the winner of that will pretty much decide who gets the buy. My winners, the 2 remaining division winners, are the Patriots and the Jags. So in some sense, we're in agreement there. But then wild card, yeah, we're very different. So For wild card, I have Texans and Ravens because
Okay.
I think 9 games is enough for the AFC wild card, and I think those two can win 9 games.
You don't think the Chargers are going to win 9 games?
They might. So the Chargers are a maybe. I'm okay with to say that they're a maybe. It'll all come down to the tiebreakers. If the
Yeah,
Texans
and
don't,
that's what's so tough is that you can say, "Oh, I'm picking this team," but if it ends up coming down to a tiebreaker, we just won't know what the factors were to consider.
yeah, and a good point. Yeah, the Texans, I think they are more volatile with if someone gets injured or if they succeed. So I'm going on the hope side that that volatility will be good.
Okay,
Whereas
so
the
you had.
Chargers,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
whereas I think the Chargers are can be more consistent. Like there's less upside for them, I think. So I'm going to go with the risky move of upside rather than consistency.
Okay.
So
So you real quick, you had Patriots, Chiefs.
no, Steelers, Chiefs. Steelers and Chiefs are the buys.
Or no, I was just going by
Oh,
divisions. So
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
you had Patriots, Chiefs, Steelers, and
Jags.
Jags, and then your wild card were Ravens and Texans.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll see how we do at the end of the year. We'll make sure to loop back around on that. Our final segment of today is our week 1 game predictions. And as we always know, the week 1 predictions, I would say even the first like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks,
Oh yeah.
are often very hard and end up with not super high records because teams are still figuring out exactly how good they are. So last year, Joseph and I both had a 62% accuracy percentage in the regular season. That did not include postseason games. So we'll see if we can improve on that this year.
That's
So
pretty good.
yeah, it is not bad, not bad. I'm shooting for maybe like 65, 66% this year. We'll see if we can get some improvement. So for week 1, we've got the first game is Packers at Bears, and I picked Bears.
Same.
Next game, Titans at Browns. I picked Browns.
Same.
Ravens at Dolphins. I picked Ravens.
Dolphins.
Boo.
They're going for it. They're going for it.
Falcons and Vikings. I picked Falcons.
I picked the Vikings actually.
Okay, that was a tough one.
That was a very tough one.
Yeah. Bills at Jets. I just picked the home team.
Same here.
Redskins at Eagles. Eagles.
Same.
Rams at Panthers. I picked Panthers.
Rams.
Okay. Yeah, that was a tough one for me too. But actually, let me put a star next to the ones that we disagreed on so I can track this. So you picked Dolphins and Vikings and Rams. Okay.
Yes.
I picked Chiefs over Jaguars.
Yes, that's the close one too.
That's
yes.
another tough one. Yeah. Colts at Chargers. I picked Chargers.
Same.
Bengals at Seahawks. I picked Seahawks.
Same.
Giants at Cowboys. I picked Cowboys.
Same.
Lions at Cardinals. I picked Cardinals.
I picked Lions, but this is a trash game of the week.
Yeah, this is probably the worst game of the week. 49ers at Bucks. I picked 49ers.
Same.
Steelers at Patriots. I picked Patriots.
Steelers.
Oof, you've got this weird Steelers bias now. So
yeah, my brother.
I need to disinfect you. This Texans at Saints. I'll wear you down. You know I will. By week 4, I'll have worn you down to regress to the mean. Texans at Saints. I picked Saints.
Saints.
And Broncos at Raiders. Another total garbage game. I picked Raiders.
Same. Yeah, that's definitely the contender for.
I have to confess, I may watch a few minutes of this game just to see how many catches Brown gets.
Yes, and I may watch Buffalo at Jets to see how bad that game is.
Oof. Okay, well, make sure you get some Skittles and some Snickers or something to make you happy, because that's not going to be a good game. That and Lions Cardinals are going to be the 2 worst games of the week.
Yeah, and you can tell to the audience, you see how tough week 1 is, because for us to have 5 different picks is
6
ridiculous.
different ones. Oh no, sorry. So we picked 5. Yeah, the Steelers, Patriots, Lions, Cardinals, Panthers, Rams, Vikings, Falcons, and Dolphins, Ravens are all different.
5 is ridiculous, and even if you were to like 3, I feel like is already kind of like high or on the higher. Like 2 is probably average, but 5 is a lot. So Well,
Yeah, don't
so,
forget
yeah.
to fill in your Eliminator challenge and Pigskin. Joseph and I, every year, we also do the ESPN Pigskin, which is where you go through and pick your winners for every game for the week, and then Eliminator Challenge is one I suck at. So you pick one team to win each week, and you can never pick that team again. And if that team loses on any given week, you're out for the year. So I have never made it, I think, past like week 5.
Ooh.
So I'm trying to get past. I think I got burned last year like week 2 or 3. It was super early.
Yeah, my best year, this is back in we were in college, and I think the game that I lost on was I think the Vikings. I want to say I made it to like week 7 through 9, somewhere around there, and I think I only had the one loss in the first 12 or 13 games, but at that point it doesn't matter because it's eliminator. But yeah, that was
Yeah, I think the strategy has to be you pick the super safe team for the first 4 weeks, even if it's going to make it harder for you to make picks later in the year.
yeah,
Because it's just so uncertain at the beginning of the year.
yeah, yeah. Well, 5 different games, and then what's our game of the week?
So our game of the week is Chiefs at Jaguars. So the way we're going to do this, I didn't explain this at the beginning, but the way we're going to do this is the game of the week will be the game that we just said, so the Chiefs and the Jaguars, and then we're going to have the highlights segment in a couple weeks where instead of doing multiple games with deep analysis, where we only talk about 4 teams, we're going to do one game with deep analysis and then watch several other games and just talk about highlights from those games so that you guys can hear the goings on of the league from a more broader perspective, basically.
Yeah, and on the contrary, we're not going to have the Dolphins Niners segment, at least in the detail that we had it.
Yeah, we're not going to be reviewing the Niners Dolphins games. We'll do maybe like a couple quick comments on it, but it's not going to be a whole segment as like we did before. All right. Well, that about wraps up our show. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. I typically upload on Tuesday evenings, the day after we go live. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Steelers get the bye.